it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1122, the paper frames pop-up, and you can check out all of our die designs at karenburniston.com. The paper frames pop-up is designed to fit inside a card that is at least 5 inches wide when closed. So the one on the packaging is a 5x5 square card. And today in the video, I'll be showing an A2 sized card in the long direction. For the front of my card, I just made a simple little shaker using some of the decorator labels that come inside the paper frames pop-up die set. And then inside you can see how generic this die set is. So it just makes a couple of pop-up generic labels. You can decorate that for absolutely any theme. So I usually start by picking my patterned paper. And in this case, just one out of my stash that's actually quite old. But what I loved about it is that it had so many colors in it. Because if you can find a pattern paper that has a lot of colors, then it's really easy to pick all the solids. You just need 4 solids that coordinate. My cardstock is 11 inches by 4 1/4, scored at 5.5 inches. And then to that, I've added 2 pieces of pattern paper. They are each 4 inches by 5 1/4. There are 12 individual dies in the paper frames pop-up set, and I'm going to start with the largest, which is the pop-up itself, and I'm just going to cut that out of a cardstock using any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer-thin die, and today I'm using my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Okay, to train the folds of the paper frames pop-up, the first one I want to find is the one that goes right through the middle of the whole piece, because that's quite easy. I can just fold that right in half and then just pinch that to find those folds. And you can see that that fold's going through the middle of some pretty small areas. So if you have a bone folder or something that you can use to kind of help that fold be nice and flat, you can definitely do that. And then once I have a nice crisp fold through the center of all those sections, then I'm going to open the piece back up again. So the folds I'm looking for next are these little small ones here and here, and that's true on both sides of the piece. It's identical. So here and here. The way I do that is I'm going to take this outermost section and just bring it forward so that I can put my thumbs underneath that section. My thumbs are just under those outer sections. Then I take my fingers and I treat them like pairs of scissors, and I hold the corners and I bring my fingers down and my thumbs up, and that's how I can get to that little fold right there so that I can work it. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So the thumbs go under the outer section, fingers like pairs of scissors, hold the corners, bring the fingers down, thumbs up, and they will meet at that little fold. Okay, now I'm actually able to collapse the piece, and you see I have those back and forth folds. So the big labels are going like a valley fold, and then the outer sections are a mountain fold. The next folds I want to find are right out here on the end. They actually create a little foot out of the outside section of the frame so that it can be glued to the card. So they're right here at that little corner. You can see them. You're going to fold out like a little valley. Okay, and that is all the pre-training that is needed for the folds before this can be installed inside the card. And what's nice about this die set is that you install it in a completely flat position. So you're going to put the glue on this outer little foot section. I like to use glue. I'm using my LINECO neutral pH adhesive in my fine tip bottle. We do sell both of those items on our website. But the goal here is just to make sure that the center fold lines up perfectly with the fold of the card. And I like to do that by bending the card to about 90 degrees, but the section that I'm actually pushing down is that outer, just making sure the fold in the middle lines up. Once one side is down, the other side's going to be easier because now the piece isn't going to move as much. I just have to put the glue underneath that little foot section, make sure that everything stays straight, my center folds are lined up, and then just press it down. Okay, even though we pre-trained the folds, we also flattened this a lot to get it in the card. So I want to check and make sure that my little label isn't pinned down right there. I want that to be able to lift up. And then the outer sections need to come forward. Remember, those are mountains. So I just need to go in there and make sure that those outer sections are coming up like mountains. My labels stay like a valley. See the back and forth folds. And then I should be able to just close the card carefully and it will train those folds again. So in addition to being very generic, the paper frames is also very easy to assemble, even though the back and forth frames make it look a little bit more elaborate. Okay, so now I'm going to reach in and I'm going to reverse the fold in that little center section. So just that one little fold, I'm going to pinch that to become a mountain. Then I'll just get my fingers down to where that kind of touches the label, make sure that those are worked a little bit too. And then the card's going to do the rest of the work for me to train those folds. But see, just where it's connected, to the label, and then I can just close the card and it will train that last little section in the center to come forward. So you can see how elaborate this looks, but really it was quite simple on the assembly, and what's nice is you can completely flatten it for decorating and then just retrain it. I've cut 2 of the largest decorator label, and then this one is designed so that when it is put on the pop-up, it is that upper piece that creates half of the frame. So what that means is that it actually lines up right to the edge of the pop-up on the inside section. So that makes placement very easy, because in the flat position, I can just make sure that that left edge or inside edge just lines up perfectly with the pop-up, but I want to make sure that I don't accidentally pin down that raising frame in the process. So that frame should be able to easily raise up around that decorator label. If it's not closing easily, it could be like I did here, where I accidentally inverted the fold on the upper section. So just make sure that those outer sections always remain mountains. Some of the label dies are even doubled in the set, including this one that I've cut out of green. You actually get 2 identical dies for that size, so you'll be able to cut very fast. And then the final 2 labels in the set, you get 1 of the one that I cut out of green, but you get a double on the small little blue one with the decorative feature. And at this point, there is nothing about this card that's anything but generic, so it could be any theme. Mine's going to be a thank you card, and I've masked off the lower words so that I only ended up inking the bottom half of the letters. And I had cut the die twice, once out of cream and once out of red, and then just layered them slightly offset from each other. One of the charms in the new Cruise Charms set is a life preserver, and that works really well when you want to make a thank you card, because you can say that you are a lifesaver. And so I'm going to assemble it very quickly here on the video, because there is a full assembly video on it that will go much slower if you want to watch it. But essentially the idea is that you trap some twine into the stripes as you wrap them around and glue them to the back. And then you can adjust that after you've got them all in place, because you can pull the twine through and then just, adjust the slack. And I wanted to try that combination of a red and white life preserver with a navy piece of baker's twine in it. That's something that I saw on a card by Fran Sabat, and I just really, really liked that combination. So now I'm just pulling to adjust the slack. And then that is a charm, but with all of our charm sets, if you don't want it to be a charm, you can just snip off the little hole at the top, and it just becomes a standalone element. Then if you want to amp up the cute factor, you can use one of our animals. So this is the bear from our winter animals die set, and most of our animals will fit perfectly in that little life preserver. And then I changed my mind on the left side of the card and wanted that little light blue label on that side as well, so that it could look a little bit like water behind the life preserver. And a really nice feature of the paper frames is how you can flatten it to decorate. You just have to make sure that everything comes back up into the pop-up position afterwards. And then I just add my greeting to the other pop-up label. The die set also includes this fun embellishment idea, which are these little banners, and you can tie that off to the pop-up into a single line on each side. Maybe you'll put that on the front of the card as well, or another option is to do a double. So I'll be teaching the double in the video today. So I need some holes in the card to string the banners. I'm going to start with one in the corner. And then for the second one, I usually go about the center of the card, which is about the center of the pop-up. So I just kind of trace over, figure out where that is, and pierce a second hole. Then I'm going to make the same 2 holes on the other side of the card. So one in the upper corner, and then about center of the pop-up where the second hole is. I've chosen just a regular baker's twine, and my pieces are about 10 inches long. And then if you don't have a needle threader, then you can just use glue out on the end of the twine to kind of roll it between your fingers and make it a needle tip. Another option is to use a floss threader. You will find these in the store next to the dental floss and toothpaste. And what you do is you just put the needle in through the hole, and then you've got the loop. So then you just put the floss through the loop and then use that to pull the floss through the hole in the card. So I started with the hole that's in the center of my card, and I'm just going to pull that twine until I have, I don't know, about like an inch left, and then just use regular old tape to tape that down on the back of the card. Okay, for the other end of the twine, I am going to weave this through the pop-up. So I'm going to go up to the top and back through just under that first little outer section. And then I'm going to make sure that the twine goes under my first piece before I put it through the hole on the other side of the card. And then once again, I can use the floss threader to easily get the twine through the other hole in the card and then to the back of the card. Before I tape down that end of the twine, I want to set the viewing angle of the card so that I get the tension right. It's probably not going to be viewed fully open where the pop-up lays flat like this. It's probably going to be viewed at a little bit of an angle. And I would like that twine to be tight at the angle that I think is pretty. So I kind of set the angle first and then pull the slack out of the twine so that it will actually trap the card into that nice viewing angle when the card is opened. And then I go ahead and tape down the other end. So once I have that twine set, I won't be able to open the card fully flat anymore because I've put that tension in the twine. That's why I wanted to decorate my labels first. Okay, so then I just need to really fast do the same exact thing on the other side. So just repeating the same process and trying to match the tension. There is a die that cuts 2 fold-over star banners and one that cuts 2 fold-over circle banners, and you can actually cut through 2 layers with those dies, so that will make cutting the banners a little faster. The other little decorator dies cut a whole bunch of hearts, stars, and circles that will fit those banners, but you can also use those for all sorts of other projects, including when you just need a whole bunch of little confetti. When you are adding the decorator shapes to the banners, which is optional, but you really only have to do one end of the banner because the other side is going to be hidden. And the heart looks good on either shape. Instead of a straight fold in the center, I'm going to roll the center around something round. So that could be a toothpick or a paper piercer, whatever you have. And then it'll have a little rounded section in the middle. And that makes it easy for it to slide along the twine later, and that way you can move it. So then what I do is I just add my glue to the inside shape and then just right over the top of the twine, straddling the twine, then I just get the shapes lined up and glued to each other. And since I haven't put any glue in the little stem area, then I can still slide it. So for my card, I put 4 banners on each little section of twine. So there are a total of 16 inside the card. And then I can just kind of space them out to where I think that they look nice. I'll stack a couple labels inside the card as a place to write a personal greeting, and then I'm just going to add one of the little hearts to that label. On the back of the card, I just need a scrap of pattern paper that's big enough to cover up the ends of the twine. The front of the card, I cut the pattern paper into one of our pattern plates, the tiles version, and then all the little pieces that fell out of it were sitting on the table, and I thought they looked great, like little confetti that would perfectly match the card. So I constructed just an easy little shaker using some foam tape and the decorator labels. And then I'm going to use some of that confetti from the tiles pattern plate, but then also a few little red hearts as well. Then I just carefully remove the liner from all of the little bits of foam tape and then put my backing label on. So just a quick and easy little shaker made using those decorator labels. The pattern plate is A2 size, so that means it will go end to end on that front of the card, completely covering it, but I can still see some of the tape through the pattern, so I'm going to add a piece of decorative cardstock. Then I've also added another piece of twine that I can use on the front of the card. The end will get covered up by my shaker, and then I can hang a few more of those cute little banners to the front of the card. And then as a last little touch, I assembled another one of those cute little bears to add to the front of the card on a little bit of foam tape. I did add the greeting, "You are a lifesaver," inside the card, and I did that just with a label maker. So that's an A2 sized card. It'll fit in a regular A2 envelope for mailing. Here is a birthday version of essentially the same card. Our little charms are going to work perfectly on the paper frames, as well as, of course, all of our animal sets. So if you prefer an upright A2 sized card like this, you can still use the paper frames pop-up. You just have to do a little bit of modification to it to make it fit. So I'm going to teach that next. So this time I started with a piece of cardstock, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4.25 inches, and then decorated with some paper panels that are a little bit smaller. Training the paper frames pop-up is identical to the other assembly, so I'm going to go a little bit faster this time. The first fold is right up the middle, and you can reinforce that by using a bone folder. Then you open up the piece, and we want the outermost section to pop up and become a mountain, and that way you can get your thumb underneath it. So thumbs underneath the mountains, fingers like pairs of scissors. They hold the corners, the fingers come down, the thumbs come up, and they pinch those little folds. Same thing on the other side. From here, you're able to collapse the piece down with the 2 back and forth folds. Next come the folds out on the ends that create the little feet that attach the pop-up to the card. So on both sides, finding those folds. And now it is ready to install inside the card. Now with a long card that's at least 5 inches wide, you do that in the flat position like this. But here's why you can't do it this way for a 4 1/4 inch wide card. Because when it closes up, the inner label portion is going to extend beyond the edge of the card. So we aren't going to be able to attach this in the usual way. We have to actually attach it in the closed position. So folding the pop-up closed with the little feet turned inward like this, it is now ready to install inside the card. And what we want to do is make sure that the labels stay within the card. So I'm just going to give myself a little extra room out there on the end and making sure the labels stay in the card. I'm still attaching the feet to the card. I'm just doing it in the closed position. And I do want to make sure that it's straight. So I'm taking my time with this. I leave everything flat, and then I just close the card against that exposed adhesive. And that will attach one side of the pop-up. So I can flip the card over and do the same thing on the other side. See, it's attached right there, leaving it in the flat position. I'm going to go ahead and add my adhesive to the other little foot of the pop-up, keep everything flat, close the card against the exposed adhesive. So now when we open the card fully flat, the pop-up doesn't go fully flat. It has sort of a built-in viewing angle to it because we've moved it inward into the card. From here, the assembly of the center section is the same. We reverse the little mountain fold in the middle, and then we just carefully maybe pull on it a little bit as we close the card. Okay, now you may be thinking, okay, great, the labels are in the card, but look at these little outer sections, they're still visible. So we need to do a modification. So with the card basically folded flat, you just need to peel back the top layer so that you can fold that section over so that it stays within the card. So I'm just making a vertical fold that just folds it straight over, like this. Now I can't leave it like that because it can't open that way. So I need to put it back where I started again. Then I open the card, and what I'm looking to do is to collapse those sections down like little valleys. So now I have to pinch the fold so that that little section is folding inward into the card. So that's the modification that you have to do to make the paper frames work in an A2 the short way, is that you need to get those little extra little valley folds into those outer frames so that they can actually collapse down into the card. When you open it, you really don't notice the difference too much. You know, you can see there top and bottom that they're actually collapsed inward instead of outward, but it essentially looks the same. And now it's just ready for decorating. And for this one, I used our flowers pattern plate on the front, overlaid over the top of a piece of the same pattern paper. And then I also used our beach charms and our word set 6 summer. For the banners on this one, I put some twine across the bottom edge of the pop-up and card to add some banners, but then I also put a few just through the flowers pattern plate on the front of the card. Here are just a few ideas by our talented design team. This card was made by Fran. Here's one by Lois where she's used the cruise charms on the paper frames pop-up. And this one by Frances shows how you can combine all your favorite stamps from other companies with the paper frames pop-up. Lois used a pen to trace the inside edge of a die to make that border. And then here's a cute one by Kelly Booth in a pink, black, and white color scheme. Karen Aiken shows how you can use the paper frames pop-up for a sympathy card. Frances Byrne with a wonderful wine-themed card using our wine charms. And I like this beautiful card by Karen Aiken with the border blends used on the outside. And one more from Lois using our spring animals and Easter charms. The paper frames pop-up is available on our website, KarenBurniston.com, as well as a lot of your favorite online and local retailers. Thanks for watching. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.